Good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of Cengage, thank you for joining us to our webinar this afternoon. My name is Katrina McKenzie, and I am the Portfolio Manager for our Languages Publishing Program. I'd like to warmly welcome the wonderful Sue Xouris, a co-author of the Obento series since its first inception and a highly respected former teacher of Japanese in New South Wales. We are also very fortunate to have two other Obento authors joining us this afternoon, Kyoko Kusumoto and Jean Swinyard. So please sit back and enjoy what Sue will take us through in terms of the Obento 5E and its pedagogy, making the most of the resources we have prepared for you. Thank you very much, Sue, and I'll hand over to you. Before I do that, our acknowledgement of country. In the spirit of reconciliation, Cengage Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea, and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. Now, there just are a few points of housekeeping for this afternoon's session. The webinar is being recorded and will be mailed out to everyone who has registered within a week's time. We will also be emailing out a What's Where document of all the resources for both Obento Deluxe and Supreme on NelsonNet, as well as a Why Choose Japanese PowerPoint template. In terms of questions, the Q&A is open for any questions that you would like answered by Sue, and we'll hold them till the end of this presentation. Furthermore, if you have any other questions post this afternoon, please email us at os.secondary@cengage.com. So as I've mentioned, Sue has had a long and distinguished career, not only as a teacher, but also a lecturer, and of course, as an author or co-author of the Obento Deluxe series and the Obento Snack Pack. So I am going to hand over to you, Sue, now. Thank you very much, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I am Sue Xouris, and it's great to have you all here to talk about the Obento series this afternoon. So over the next 45 minutes or so, I'd like to give you a bit of an insight into the pedagogy behind the Obento series and hopefully some strategies that you can use to make the most of the resources that we've got here for you. The strategies are, of course, applicable to both Obento Deluxe and Obento Supreme, but most of the examples I'm going to show you are from Obento Supreme today, but I'll mention both. So, well, you might have been looking at some of the tasks and actually saying to yourself, so what were they thinking? Well, this is where you're going to find out exactly what we were thinking. So we might start off with actually what you already know. I'm going to tell you something you already know. Learning needs to be fun and success needs to be achievable. So in putting together the Obento series, we've had that in our mind, and we've tried to put together resources that use a variety of activities, and in fact, a wide variety of activities, which cater to students' abilities and learning styles, and that's whether it's auditory, visual, or kinesthetic, or you know your students yourselves. And so the idea is that the wide range of activities that we have allows you choice and flexibility to cater for your students. You know your students better than anyone. Short, engaging tasks. We know that, don't we? We know that the younger the student, the shorter the task, basically. Short, engaging tasks, and within a lesson, so 10 to 15 minutes, no more than that. And so a lot of the tasks that we've put together are, in fact, short like that. Keep it fun. Games, songs, puzzles. I know a lot of you, and you know me, and you know I love games. And so we have a lot of games. We have songs, puzzles, role plays, and challenges. In my last school I was teaching boys, and challenges were very important for them. And so a lot of those sorts of tasks will actually inspire students to learn. It'll be fun, engaging, and hopefully achievable. Now, the last one, providing students with strategies for effective learning. I think we need to provide students with strategies to be able to learn this language, to be able to read, to be able to read characters and words, to be able to speak this language, and to understand its culture. So strategies are really important. So in terms of the pedagogy, let's start. This is what it's all about. So in terms of skills, our approach to listening, viewing, speaking, reading, and writing, and cultural understanding is that it's integrated. So we don't require students to learn the script before they start, or we don't put the script off until later. It's completely integrated. The script is taught from day one, and it's taught without Romaji, and it's integrated with listening and speaking. And that's probably a difference between this course and other courses. And I've had a lot of success with it. I know a lot of people who've used Obento for a long time have had a lot of success with it. And what it's done is it's made our students very good at reading and writing, because they've had it from day one. They've never relied on Normaji. Introduction of Kana enables students to read what they can say. So by integrating the script into the listening and speaking, their reading is reading in context. So they're only reading what they're learning to say. The cultural content is also integrated. It springs from the language learned. So the cultural content in each unit can be introduced through language. So I suppose if we're looking at those skills, is there an order that we teach them? Yes, there is. Receptive skills before productive skills. And you'll see as we go through, we present listening or viewing. These days we have videos as well, listening and viewing before speaking, and reading before writing. Let's go down a little further. Content. In terms of our content, the main pedagogy that is around which the course is designed is presentation, practice, production. It's one that I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's a very, very simple methodology, and one that seems to suit most learners. What it means is we present the concept or the language pattern or the vocabulary or the script. So whatever element we're presenting. Then we have students practice it. They practice the individual elements until they're familiar with them. And that's a really, really important part of the methodology. If students can practice the elements and become really familiar with the elements, then they're able to produce their own language. And so production then is language in an authentic scenario. So we're actually giving students strategies all the way through to be able to build their skills in Japanese. And then in terms of task types, we have a differentiated approach. In terms of language content, you'll find there is core language and there is more language. The sentence patterns are core, and then in vocabulary, we have core vocabulary and more vocabulary, and you can add more vocabulary still according to your students' needs and your students' skills. The tasks are differentiated to engage all learners, regardless of their skill level or type of learner. And so what we've got, if we were going to look through a lot of the tasks, and you'll notice that there are differentiated tasks, there are simple tasks, and there are more complicated tasks which require higher order thinking. As well as that, we give suggestions for differentiating specific tasks into two or three different levels. And so the same task can be done by in a different way by different students in your classroom. Okay. In terms of the pathways, so while the units themselves provide a pathway for learning, so in terms of the topics, within the units, the tasks are actually not designed to be taught chronologically. So you can pick and choose, and you can teach the elements of the course in the order that you like. A wide range of tasks for PPP, presentation, practice, and production, which give you choice and flexibility. So we know that there's a lot in there, but we wanted to provide for you a wide range of tasks that you can use so that each time you teach the unit, you might teach it in a slightly different way, or a slightly different way to suit the needs of that particular group. Okay, let's move further. The Obento method then for introducing script. That's part of this integrated approach. And I know that this is a bit of an issue with a lot of teachers. Some teachers like to introduce the script up front. Some teachers are happy to introduce it as an integrated approach. Let me go through this approach and see if it suits you. The method is based on the principles the Japanese script can be taught from day one without romaji by integrating it with listening and speaking. And so then the reading is taught within a context. So we don't just teach all of the characters and then any words. We teach the words, the script that is needed to write the language that they're learning in the unit. So that in that way, we don't teach it aiueo, kakeko. We teach it according to the first character of keywords in the unit. So taught within a context, students are required to read only what they can say. So it's a natural method. We wouldn't expect a child learning to read in their own language to be able to read words that they were not familiar with. So we require students to read only what they're learning to say. And then the last one, and again, a really important one, is giving students explicit strategies along the way to build their reading skills. We really need to teach them how to build their reading skills, and that's how we make it achievable. So let's have a look further at this method. 4-step guide for you here. Step 1 is distinguishing between hiragana, katakana, and kanji. Now you might think, this is a bit basic, isn't it? I mean, we tell them, but it's a really important part of this methodology, because we don't teach hiragana first, then katakana, then kanji. We teach language as it naturally appears. And so from Unit 1, we will teach some hiragana to be able to read the key expressions. We will teach some katakana so that they can read the names of the exchange students, the characters in the book. But in Unit 2, we teach the numbers in kanji. So students need to be able to easily identify which is hiragana, which is katakana, and which is kanji. So the strategy is that hiragana is round and curly, katakana are straight lines with pointy bits, and kanji are like little pictures. So once they get that concept, and we keep reinforcing that, then it's easier for them to predict what they're about to see. Also, hiragana are used for Japanese words and katakana for borrowed words, so they know what they're going to see. Step 2 is teaching the first character of keywords to enable them to recognize the keywords and expressions. Okay. I'm going to go through these in more detail in the next few slides, showing you how we do that using the resources. But I'll just quickly go through this now. So strategy then is to use mnemonics to learn the characters, which is, I'm sure, what all of you are doing. So hiragana in 48 minutes or something that you've created. And then the look, think, and count method. I'll go through it in a minute. Step 3 is lots and lots of practice. This is this practice, presentation, practice, production. This is the practice phase, and it is the most important because that's where students notice the shape of the characters, the similarities and differences. And then once we start to have them read words, they're looking at the length of words. They're predicting words within a piece of text. And then the 4th step is that moving them from reading single characters to single words and to a piece of text. And so that step is building students' reading skills by exposing them to pieces of text which increase gradually in length and difficulty. So again, we make it achievable. Strategies there are predicting, scanning, sequencing, and scaffolding. Let's have a look at them. Okay, so the first step is distinguishing between hiragana, katakana, and kanji. In the student book on pages 10 and 11, there is this menu. And so a piece of authentic text. And we use this piece of text to explain the Japanese writing system. So what I do in the classroom, and I usually do this even about lesson 2 or 3, is that we'll look at this and we'll discuss it. So I'll say, what do you think this is? And they'll say, it's a menu. Wow, how do you know it's a menu? Well, there's, there's pictures of food and there's numbers, of course, the numbers of the prices. So I'll get them to look at the piece of authentic text and then look closely at the characters and see if they can tell me about shapes and things like that. Then I will play the video that we have. Now, the video is in the video section in NelsonNet for Unit 1. It is the Benkyo no Ben video. And it's a video of Ben and Kate, 2 of the characters in the book. Ben has learned Japanese before, and so Kate is having lunch with him and trying to read the menu, and of course she can't read, so he's teaching her how to read. I'll play a little bit of it for you. I won't, unfortunately, because of time, we can't hear the whole thing, but I would encourage you to go and have a listen to the whole thing. So I would play that. I would have students look at these pages of their student book at the same time. I usually get them to do it in pairs so that I'll ask them to follow on with their finger and find the items that the 2 characters are talking about. So if they're doing it in pairs, then they're sort of helping each other. Let's have a bit of a look at it. Okay, let's see if we can get into talk.
I'm Ben. I'm here to help you read and write Japanese. Some of the students call me Benkyo no Ben, which is like brainy Ben, because the first sound in my name is the first sound in Benkyo, which means study. When Japanese children are named, their parents choose characters that have a good meaning in hopes that they'll turn out like that. So I'm Benkyo no Ben in hopes that I'll study hard. As if.
This is great. I meant without any English. I'll starve before I can understand it.
Hey, Kate, need some help?
Ben, can you read Japanese?
I know a few things.
Well, I'm really hungry, so if you're able to help me, let's get to it.
Okay. Well, I suppose you can recognize these numbers.
They're obviously the prices, but how can I read what they use to actually eat?
See the first dish, number 1?
Yeah.
Well, the round, wiggly characters are called hiragana.
Hiragana. What do they say?
Well, there are 3 characters which make 3 sounds. U, do, un.
U, do, un.
Yeah, udon, which means noodles.
Udon. Sounds good to me. And the same characters, hiragana, are in the next one as well. What kind of noodles are they?
They're kitsune udon.
Kitsune udon. So you mean each one of those hiragana is a separate sound?
Hi.
The third one is udon too, but the 3 characters in front of it look a bit different.
Yeah, those first 3 characters are called katakana.
Ah, katakana. They look different, straight up.
That's how you can tell katakana from hiragana.
So hiragana look round and curly, but katakana are more like straight lines with pointy bits.
Yeah,
So what?
Okay, so I'm going to stop that now only because of time, but they go on and Ben explains to her that, you know, the hiragana are used for Japanese words and katakana are used for foreign words, and then kanji look like little pictures and they have meaning. So he explains to her how to read this menu. So what I would do in class is I would have them look at the menu, listen to this. I would pause it. I wouldn't leave it go on the whole time. It's a bit long. It's a bit longer than that. And so we would pause it and we would discuss it. By the end of this video and looking at that page, students have a fairly good idea about round and curly ones, hiragana, straight and pointy, katakana, and the little pictures, kanji. And so if they see them in a piece of text, then they're starting to identify them. And that's a really important step. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so step 2 is to teach the first character of the keywords to enable students to recognize words and expressions. Now, as I said to you, we don't teach it in the alphabetical order that is there. We teach it according to the first character of keywords. In the very first lesson, when I teach year 7, I teach them the greetings. Ohayou gozaimasu, konnichiwa, mata ashita, and sayonara. Within that lesson, I am then able to teach them o, ko, ma, and sa. So by the end of the lesson, they can recognize those 4 words. So at the end of the first lesson, we've done listening, speaking, reading, but not writing, but certainly reading. So they can go home at the end of the first lesson and feel as though they've achieved a lot in Japanese in that very first lesson. They're so proud of themselves when they think they can read this script that no one else can read. So individual characters then would be taught using your flashcards, hiragana in 48 minutes, or whatever you use. Lots and lots of flashcard work to present those. Then flashcards with the words on them. Now you'll notice that these are color-coded. So color coding the words as well give an extra help to students to recognize the words. So all of the greetings are in one color, all of the instructions are another color, and then arigato or namae wa, they're all in another color. So if you have a full set of those, and of course you don't introduce them all at once, you introduce a few characters and then their keywords, and then within a lesson they can read. The interesting thing is that we don't require them to read every character in the word. That would take so long. If they only know that we teach them o for ohayou gozaimasu, we also actually teach them o for onamae wa, but we teach them na as well so that they can work through the word. Okay, you'll notice, I'll talk about that in just a second on the next slide. You'll notice also we teach katakana. We can do that because they understand the difference in shape, and then we can show them text with both hiragana and katakana in. So the strategies: use the mnemonics to learn the character, and then look, think, and count. So the strategy is this: look at the first character of the word. Think about a word that you know that starts with that character. Do you know a word that starts with the character? Yes, we do. Or we know ohayou gozaimasu. And then they might say, yes, we know onamae wa as well. So then we count the characters to see, or look at the length of the word. Oh, ohayou gozaimasu, it's a long word. Okay. And so we look at that. Whoops, I've just taken it back. We look at the word, and we is it a long word? Is it a short word? O ohayou gozaimasu, a long word, and therefore o ohayou gozaimasu. Yeah. Sa sayonara. Ko konnichiwa, mata ashita. All right, let's go further. So o for ohayou gozaimasu, ko konnichiwa, sa sayonara, mata ashita. Na, we already know ma and na. So when we come to onamae wa, we're already teaching them to move through the word. So we're not restricting them to that first character. We're teaching them a few more. Okay. You for Yusuke, but Yuki is also there too. So we teach ki. And also looking at the length of the word. We can also do katakana be, ben, ke for keito, e, ema, ha, hajono, and to for toni. Okay, step 3. Step 3 is lots of practice. Identifying, matching, copying. So these are tasks out of the workbook. So we get them to do different things like using highlighters, colored highlighters to highlight examples of hiragana, katakana, kanji in a piece of authentic text. Looking at the shape and copying. Finding a character and then finding it in another place. They're not even having to read it. Really, they're just matching. We're very slowly giving them practice in identifying the shape of these characters. So, we find it here, we color it, and ma, they're all red. I think this turns out to be koinobori. Okay. And then completing characters. So that's part of the writing. Again, more matching. So we've got a homestay list here. So we're finding it written here and finding it written here, finding it, and matching it. So we're manipulating the characters without straight reading. Okay, again, same with this, we're finding it and we're copying it. So we're really just making students notice, giving students time to notice this new script. This one here, finding them in the puzzle and copying them. So students can develop their reading skills by doing lots of pre-reading tasks. They're natural pre-reading tasks that students would do or that children will do, learning to read their own language, identifying, copying, and matching. Step 4 then is moving students. How do we move them then from single kana to single words to short text? So we do it very gradually. This is a task in the workbook in Unit 1, which I really like to do with my students, and they really like it because they feel as though they achieve something. It's filling the empty speech bubbles with the letter of the appropriate response from the list below. And so we show them the first one. We show them the first one up here, and we say, what is the first character? It's O. Do we know a word that starts with O? Yes, we know Ohayo gozaimasu. Okay, let's see. Ohayo go. No, that's too long. Do we know another one? Yes, we do. Onamaye wa. Now, keep in mind, they're not reading language that they've never seen before. They're reading language that they already know. So they're familiar with onamaye wa. We've done it for listening and speaking. So it's language they know. So if Takako said to Emma, onamaye wa, what would Emma answer? And they would say, oh, Emma desu, or watashi wa Emma desu. Okay, let's go down here and see if we find it. We know for Emma. Emma desu. And so we put A in there. Okay, so we're predicting. Okay, verbs. Move on. Scanning. So we can look at a piece, then as they go through, as they learn more characters, we can scan a piece of text. This is from Unit 3. So we can see that this is all the same. So we highlight the key words, scan the sentences, and notice the parts of each which are the same, highlight the keywords and extract the meaning. My students always carry a highlighter, and they do all the way through to Year 12. They go into the HSC and they've got a highlighter, and they're using it for their reading texts. And that way they don't miss anything. So we teach them that early on. Scanning. So sequencing. So again, we highlight the key words. So in a small piece of text like this, we help them through it, get them to highlight the key words, which will give them the meaning. Notice the sequence of the information in the first item, and then use it to predict the next one. So do the first one with them, and then give them the next two to do. Then these extended texts can also be used as a scaffold, as a model for students to produce their own text. And scaffolding then, the Tsukuri Masho sections in the student book and in the workbook are text type tasks. So this one's on emails. The missing information here are the keywords. The writing task then simply requires students to insert their own information into this model or into this template and then copy it out. So we're scaffolding their reading into their writing. And basically that is a very quick explanation of the method of teaching script from the beginning during this method. Let's have a look now back at presentation, practice, production. And basically the way that we've been teaching the script is using that presentation, practice, production model. So how do we present elements of the language or present new language? With flashcards? I'm sure these are things that you're doing in your classroom anyway. Flashcards. With Obento, we have a manga with animated cartoon stories. I'll show you that in a moment. We can do it through a role play. We can do it with question answers, teacher just asking questions and having students answer. Word play, using a magnetic or a felt board, or just, you know, on your whiteboard with blue tack on the back of flashcards, word cards, or using a table. Grammar PowerPoints, we have those in NelsonNet, which you can use to introduce new grammar. Picture or realia stimulus, so you can introduce the new language just by a set of pictures or a set of realia. I always used to introduce the animals with a set of stuffed animals, stuffed toys from my children. Songs and raps, you can introduce it with a song or a discussion point, or of course you can start with a game. So let's have a look. The itadakimasu section in the student book is the language and context. It's supported by animated stories with the audio and captions. So what I would do to introduce the language using these is to do it orally, introduce the new language orally with the animated cartoon story, with or without the text. You can use it without the text. We've got a version without the text in it. And so you can hear it. So it's the audio is available. And if you have a look at the icons on the top on each of the pages, it tells you what is available. So, so there's audio and video with this one. Use the manga, or you can use the manga as an end-on task to put it all together. But certainly using the manga on its own just as a reading task is a waste of a good unit, a good resource, I think. Maybe it's a topic for another webinar. The Donna Aji section, that's where the new language is split into language patterns. The strategies then for this is to use the pictures, these pictures here, as flashcards or picture stimulus for oral presentation. Presentation needs to be receptive skills first. Present them orally and then have them use them. Have them use the language to do speaking and writing. On this page, on the Donna Aji page, as I said, the language is split into separate language patterns. So there's one of these, a Donna Aji, for each of the language patterns introduced in the unit. They are color-coded so that the keywords are color-coded and students know which bit can change in the pattern. So, doko kara kimashita ka, somewhere kara kimashita. So this is the bit that changes. And then, of course, on here, there's a role play, so students can do the role play. This is the introduction page for or the presentation page for the script. We've talked about that, so I'm not going to go into it in any great detail, except to say that you would introduce the characters with your flashcards, kana cards, and of course word cards. Strategies, something that I do for the first probably 4 or 5 units of work. So the first 6 months or even more, is the beginning of each lesson. I would do about 10 minutes of drilling the kana and matching them with the keywords, because this is something, if we're going to teach by this method, we need to keep reinforcing it and not expect students just to do it on their own. So we need to make it achievable. Color coding for the keywords, we talked about that. A silent quiz is something that I like to do at the beginning of the lesson. So I'll use the flashcards, but I'll also do a silent quiz where I show the flashcard, I'll show of the character or the word. The students think of it in their own mind. I give them a couple of seconds to do that. I give them the answer, and then they take a note of the ones they got wrong. And so you can say, right, how many got no mistakes? How many got one mistake? And so they're doing their own little bit of formative assessment as they're going along. So lots of reinforcement. Okay, the Gohan Bokazu pages. The Gohan, of course, is the structure, the language pattern, and the Okazu is the vocabulary. These are color coded as well, and so they know that they can put all of this vocab into the pattern in this space. Down the bottom here, conversation corner are expressions which are used to help make conversation more natural. Again, have a look at the icons. That'll show you what you've got to support you. There's listening. You can introduce this using the listening, or you can introduce it yourself. This one is interactives. So there are a set of interactive tasks on NelsonNet to help practice this. This is play and say, which is listen and repeat and record your voice. So you can check that. And there's also a video. So the strategies for using this, you can cut this page up, copy it and cut it up. That's what I do. And use it as a table game or a board presentation, or you can just use it straight out of the book or off the ebook. And you can use the grammar PowerPoints, which are also on NelsonNet, to introduce the new patterns. The cultural topics, teiburu mana and oshoyu. Teiburu mana are the like cultural topics, and they can be introduced through language. They are the topics are appropriate to each of the units, and so we could certainly introduce this through doko kara kimashita ka, Nagasaki kara kimashita. The oshoyu are connections between language and culture, and they can be presented just in using discussion. Okay, and of course there are plenty of tasks in the TTK, the teacher toolkit, to help you with all of those presentation tasks. Okay, you can introduce your new language with a song or a rap, and I think it's time to do a rap. If we've got the time, yeah, let's do a rap. So I'm hoping that you're all going to do it with me. I can't hear you and I can't see you, so I'm hoping that you're going to do it with me. And we'll do the first one here, the kara kimashita rap, and it goes something like this. So form two teams, the second team, so you divide your class in half. I'll be the first team and you can be the second team. Yeah, the teams can swap roles. So this one is very easy because you're just repeating. So it's going to go like this. Here we go. And kara kimashita, kara kimashita. Doko kara kimashita ka? Doko kara kimashita ka? Hey Sydney, hey Sydney, Sydney kara kimashita. Sydney kara kimashita. Hey Melbourne, hey Melbourne, Melbourne kara kimashita. Melbourne kara kimashita. Hey Brisbane, hey Brisbane, Brisbane kara kimashita. Brisbane kara kimashita. Hey Perth, hey Perth, Perth kara kimashita. Perth kara kimashita. Hey stop, hey stop. Kara kimashita. Kara kimashita. Kara kimashita. And there it is. I hope you all did that. I hope I wasn't just doing this by myself. So strategies then, use the song and rap to introduce the new language. In one like this and in many of the songs and raps that we have, and there's one for each unit, you can manipulate the patterns to their own sentences. So you can get students to change it and put the name of the suburb that they live in or the town that they live in or whatever. Okay, moving along. I'm going to have a quick drink of water after that. Okay, so the TTK, the teacher toolkit then. For presentation, there are ideas in the wraparound. So in the book itself, there are ideas around each double page of the student book. There are language and culture notes, there are warm-up tasks, there are lots and lots of games, presentation scenarios, role plays, and craft activities. Also, for teacher support, there is formative assessment, suggestions, and so on. Differentiated tasks, as I said to you before, we've some of the tasks that we've provided, we provide also them at different levels, level 1, level 2, level 3, just on this page. Okay, practice. So presentation, practice, production. We present our vocabulary, for example, or our structure with the vocabulary. We then have to take that back and we have to make sure that students have plenty of practice. This really is the most important phase of this PPP, because students need to be familiar with the elements before they can produce it themselves. Okay, so we'll go through all of these as we go through. So the first one, the practice boxes for writing. These are in the workbook. You'll find most of the presentation tasks are presented in the student book. Most of the practice and production you'll find in the workbook. So simple practice tasks are more simple. They're shorter, they're requiring knowledge of the elements of the language, not the whole language put together. So practice boxes for writing in the workbook, and supported by lots and lots of games. The games instructions you'll find in the wraparound for the teacher toolkit, which I just showed you, and I'll show you again more pages shortly. But games, that's going to keep it fun. In my classroom, we would do at least 2 games a lesson. And in terms of the practice phase, there would always be a game in the practice phase. So it might be a whole class game where they're sort of jumping around the room, or a table game, or one on the screen you can do, or one with cards. Lots and lots of games, reading games and writing games. A few examples are there. Have a look in the teacher toolkit for the instructions for those. The Hitokuchi memo is a page in the workbook where the core language and patterns with the keywords and expressions are presented at the top, and the list of the key vocabulary. So what this enables students to do is to create their own memo, Hitokuchi memo at a glance, of the patterns and key vocabulary, which they can use then as a reference to complete the workbook task. So at the beginning for each of the Donna Aji, there are one of these. The students write the English next to the Japanese word, and then they match it with a picture. Okay, and then they can listen and repeat. So listening, reading, speaking, and well, they don't have to write them because they're there for them, but then they can refer back to those pages. Listening tasks. So lots of listening tasks for practice are short, requiring 1-word answers, true or false, multiple choice. Very, very simple. Encourage students to take notes. All of the audio are in the audio pack, and the answers to the workbook tasks are also in the teacher toolkit and on NelsonNet. Workbook tasks. So again, we've been through this, so I won't go in great detail, except to say distinguishing between hiragana, katakana, and kanji, not just in the first unit. This one's in unit 3, where they have to identify the foreign delegates in an international convention. So again, talk about that. The foreign names are going to be written in katakana, and the Japanese names are going to be written in hiragana. So basically, they don't have to read it, they just have to identify it. Matching, seeing characters in puzzles, and copying. This one we've seen before. Piecing together, so extracting characters or words from sentences, piecing together broken sentences and sorting out words and sentences. Matching words to pictures, unjumbling words, so down here unjumbling this one, and of course drawing lines between matching words, English and Japanese. Keep reminding students of the strategy. That's the important thing, especially in the practice phase. Writing tasks, again, we start with copying characters, completing characters, and then completing sentences. It's all about keeping it achievable. Recognizing words in puzzles and copying, matching words and rewriting and labeling. I just want to show you this one very quickly. The highlight, first of all, they had to highlight the all of the katakana that they know in this puzzle, okay, and they're given to them then. I've cheated a little bit down here by giving you the answers, the answer of that. So once they've colored all the katakana, you can see how easy it is for them to see the hiragana words that are left. So again, this is in Unit 1. So in Unit 1, they can do a puzzle that contains all of those characters simply by reminding them of the strategies. Okay, do we know a word that starts with that character? Yeah, what would it be? So we find it and then we copy it. So they're copying the characters that they've learned, and the ones that they haven't learned are given to them anyway. Speaking tasks. So simple speaking tasks for practice. Listen and repeat, simple questions and answers, and responding orally to pictures or text. So just a few examples. You know, you can do little interviews as well. In the TTK, the Teacher Toolkit, we have more suggestions for practice tasks. Also, you'll find on those pages the references to the workbook exercises, and references to other support materials and resources from the NelsonNet online materials, and also in the TTK, and also the workbook tasks, warm-up tasks, differentiated tasks, extension, and of course lots and lots of games. You'll find all of the language games or suggestions for language games in the TTK wraparound around each of the pages. Production. Okay, so production requires students to put their language together. Use the language, put the elements that they have practiced together to use language within a context. Okay, let's have a look at those. The Tsukurimashou section is the text, is the text type section. So this one is out of Unit 3. This page on the left is from the student book, and these two pages are from the workbook. So all of the Tsukurimashou pages are given to you at 2 levels. So you can have a basic level and you can have a more advanced level. So you can differentiate within your class, or you can choose just to teach one of the 2 levels. Support then in the workbook, a piece we've seen before, and then of course sample speeches. So just again for scaffolding, for speaking and writing, discuss the strategies for writing and speaking using the template, and that is, you know, these are the key words, fill those in, and then you can create your own. And then of course workbook support. I think that's about it for that one. Let's have a look. So production, workbook. In the workbook, WB in the workbook, the listening tasks are for listening for gist or listening for detail. These are a longer piece of text and require students to listen for particular pieces of information. Lots of surveys, information about celebrities, and some higher order thinking tasks as well. So this one requires picking out the information and then answering a question related to that. Reading tasks, captions, labels, lots of different types of tasks. And again, making those tasks, the pieces of text themselves, increase in difficulty and in length when students become more comfortable with that. More examples: advertisements, short letters, emails, personal profiles, charts, and menus. Of course, these ones are in Obento Deluxe. When we get into Obento Supreme, we get into some beautiful pieces of text, lots of letters, lots of authentic texts, but the same strategies apply. Have your students use their highlighters. Let them look at the piece of text, and do we know a word that starts with that? Do we, by the time they get to about Unit 6 of Obento Deluxe, they will know their hiragana, and then they're starting on katakana. By the time they get to Unit 12, they know hiragana and katakana. So when they're using Obento Supreme, that should be easy for them. And so the beautiful pieces of text that are in there really show, I suppose it proves that students can take a piece of authentic text, or pretty much authentic text, and read it with those strategies. So it's all about the strategies. Always use a highlighter, and of course these sorts of things, the production tasks can be used for assessment, formative assessment, or even summative. Okay, oral interaction. So speaking, guided and free role plays, asking and responding to questions, respond orally to pictures or text, and of course make speeches. Okay, let's keep going. Surveys, more of those. Writing tasks, short letters, emails, profiles. I'll let you go back. I know you're going to have this presentation, so you can go back and have a look at these at your leisure. Of course, driving questions, form I'll show you, and table manners questions. And then in the wraparound for the TTK, you'll get more ideas for production. Assessment, I'll let you have a look at that on your own. I'm conscious of the time, but formative and summative assessment available to you in the teacher support material. And of course, which brings us to teacher support. You will be receiving a list of what's where. So all of the different resources that we've got and where you'll find them. Something I'll just draw attention to is the unit by unit teaching programs and the curriculum grids. They're there to help you program this course. The teacher toolkit will give you all of your teaching ideas and all of the support worksheets, grammar PowerPoints, workbook answers, unit tests, and solutions, videos and study guides and so on are all on NelsonNet for you. So two last looks at the TTK. Suggested pathways if you are short on time and you want like a fast track pathway. And in each of the units, we give you an example of the kind of interaction that learners could achieve by the end of the unit at 2 different levels. So you can use that as well for assessment if you like. Okay, I think we have virtually just about come to the end. And at this point, I suppose I'd like to come back very quickly to where we started. And where we started was that we've designed Obento to offer a learning experience which is fun and achievable. Now, as busy teachers like you, we've tried to, because we were busy teachers like you, and we've created a really wide range of resources for you to use with your students to suit the needs of your particular students. There are, of course, many more than you will need in a particular year, and then they were never intended to be used in a particular year, but you will have choice and flexibility to use them to meet the needs of your students, because you're the ones that know your students. So I'd like to thank you for being here today, and I hope that I've been able to give you a bit of an insight into what we were thinking. And I hope that the resources, the Obento resources, will inspire your students to love Japanese as much as you do. And then hopefully those resources will also make your day a little less busy. So thank you, everyone. We're up to questions and answers.
Thank you very much, Sue. I'm actually going to hand over to Jessica for the question and answers. I'm conscious of time, so please, if you have any questions you'd like to ask us, please do so. Alternatively, if you prefer to email through, we will respond, as we do value your feedback. So Jess, over to you.
The first one from Song, she asked when she would have the copy of these PowerPoint slides. So the webinar is it's being recorded, and you will get also a downloadable copy of the PowerPoint slides within that email. going out to everyone who's registered within the week of this session. And the other question that we had was, how do you suggest to use manga, which is at the beginning of the Obento Deluxe book?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I mean, as I said before, it's probably a good topic for another session, because I think using it's a very good resource to have, and it can be used at the beginning as a presentation item. But if you're going to use it at the beginning, you use it as a listening task. It is available on NelsonNet as an interactive animated cartoon series, is what we call it, cartoon slides, and you can listen to it and look at the frames of the manga. That would be how I would use it to introduce language, and then later you can use it at the end as an end-on task. In the middle, there are many things you can do with the manga, and there are suggestions all around on those pages, all around the wraparound. So I'd suggest that you perhaps have a look at those. You can cut them up and use them for table games. You can take parts and have students put their own information into them. You can use them as flashcards. There are many things you can do, and perhaps as part of another webinar, we might look at reading and writing and effective use of manga, because they're a really good resource, because they're a piece of authentic text. That's it, Jess.
We just had one more question. It was, could you explain a silent quiz again?
Yes, a silent quiz. So what I used to do, or what I would do, is I will show flashcards, and I haven't got any flashcards here with me at the moment, but okay, so I'm going to show hiragana flashcards. So at the beginning of the lesson, just showing the flashcards, the students say them in unison. So I'll do that for a few minutes, just to have them remember the characters from the previous lesson. Then I'll say, okay, we're going to do a silent quiz. So I will hold up the card, and the students will say the character to themselves in their head, so it will be silent. And then I will say the answer. So I'll hold up hold it for a minute. They will say in their head. I will say next one, e, whatever. Okay. So in their head, they're saying them, and then they're just writing a little note or a number in their book, just to say the ones that they've missed. So at the end of doing the set of 20 or 10 or whatever it is characters, I would say, okay, put your hand up if you had no mistakes. How many got one mistake? How many got two mistakes? And then I would say, all right, tell me which ones you got wrong, and we'll go through those again. But the silent quiz meant then that they were doing it on their own. They were testing themselves. They weren't being influenced by everybody else saying it out aloud, and they had a little idea about where they were. It was also good for me for formative assessment, because I could get a gauge at how many characters they were having trouble with. Oh, again, in the teacher toolkit, in the wraparound, there is the silent quiz is in there, and I'm not sure which unit it's in, but it's in there somewhere, and the instructions for that are there. Yes? Are there any more questions?
That's it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone has pricing queries, I can we will send you to the sales reps to discuss the series as a whole. Yes, so you can request an appointment with them if you need to. So that's just at our inbox, ost.secondary@cengage.com.
And then that's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming, and I hope that you got some nice strategies out of that, which you can take back into your classroom tomorrow morning. Thanks, everyone.